Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to 15 with Fosca, the podcast. Today, I am joined by Alessandro Bruni, a philosopher and strategist who teaches at the University of Pisa and leads the Naima Brain Trust. Alessandro has spent his career showing how classical thinking can solve modern corporate riddles, from lecturing on management engineering to consulting with global firms like Accenture and many others. Alessandro uses his background in philosophy to help companies rethink branding, digital transformation, and sustainable growth. He is the author of the influential Senza aspettare Godot and his latest book, I quattro pilastri per le aziende B2B. Alessandro, I am so happy to have you here on the podcast. We met through our good friend, Joe Weston, our mutual good friend, Joe Weston. And I have been saying forever, I need to have a philosopher on the podcast so we can talk about all of the problems in the world and how we can solve them. So I wanted to thank you for coming today, for joining me today, and for helping me make sense of this world.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy and I'm very grateful to Joe that gave me a chance to meet you. You are a very inspiring person. Thank you so much. Well, and I'm very embarrassed by the introduction, but it's okay. I will try to stay at that level, at that standing level.
First of all, it's an absolute honor for me. And, you know, we've had such interesting conversations, so many interesting conversations about a lot of different things, even just before we got, we pushed the record button. And so I find philosophy and philosophers so valuable right now. And so for me, it really is an honor to be sitting down with you today. So let's dive into our questions. You trained in philosophy of language before entering the world of business consulting. How does philosophy shape the way you read markets, organizations, and leadership today?
Well, I think that basically systemic thought, which is one of the characteristics of philosophy, is a tremendous advantage as opposed to STEM culture. Because markets, organizations, and society and economy and businesses are objects of a conversation. They're metaphors. They're not real, but they function according to rules, abstractions. So if you pattern the rules, you understand the language game and you understand the conversation and you're part of that conversation. That gives you a great advantage. It's like instead of watching the world from outside, you're part of it, you know?
Yeah, that's an excellent answer. And maybe that's the key to improving a lot of things and why you're so in demand, you know? So you describe yourself as a filosofo d'impresa. What does it mean to bring philosophy into the boardroom? And do you think that business leaders today are hungry for that?
I'm not sure that business leaders are starving for philosophy. Not really, and that's good. I mean, but basically, when ordinary mechanical thinking does not produce the expected results or any result at all, well, it's time to question the whole frame, namely the basic perception of reality, which is one of the problems of businesses today. So what's going on? Why our schemes of reality aren't working anymore? And how fast is really change? And at what level is it manifesting, not only in the business environment, but also in the social context, which has a great influence in businesses? And what can we do about it? Do we have the time and the skills to act or react? Which is basically when a pattern fails in physics, you change the pattern, you know? Ordinary and classical physics cannot explain certain phenomena, then you go to relativity. Relativity has a number of shortfalls, and then you go to quantum physics. It's never perfect, but you change the frame before you realize that it will not work anymore. When you understand that there's something that is not explainable by your scheme, then you have to question the scheme.
And how does that, I mean, how does that play out in your work with companies? Like, how do you speak to that with the people that you go in and speak to?
I use dialogue. I ask questions and I don't give answers. I'm not prescriptive, and in this sense, I'm a strange strategist, because usually strategists will come with a blueprint and tell you in the imitation game what should you do and why didn't you do it. I usually try to capture the DNA of the company, because
Mhm.
at the extent of the DNA works is the extent that the company can thrive and can develop. So I put questions in a frame which is very, very, very structured, and it's like a sort of a dialogue, but very structured dialogue. And it implies figures, but not in terms of give me the figures and I'll judge you, you're good or bad. But what are the figures are telling you about what you are and what you want to do and what you did in the past. So it's a dialogue method. It's very structured. It's very safe, not really comfortable, but and the other thing is that I use is that I align all the people. I refuse to talk to only to the top board of top managers, because it's not where the things happen. They have a scheme in their mind and they try to force it into the reality, but it doesn't work. It simply does not work. So they have to understand, when they want to go somewhere, they have to understand the deal of resistance that they are encountering, because first of all, most of the people don't even understand what's going on, and then most of the people regard the change as a challenge, as a personal threat.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you have this approach. I think it's phenomenal. And I love that you broke it down that way. How do people respond?
It's ups and downs, like in a conversation.
Mm,
There's a lot of, there can be a lot of interrupts, but once, there's something about a conversation which is very important. While if I tell you you must do something, you can also not do that. When you are in the conversation, the entanglement is so strong that you can keep the conversation going on at a certain level, and at that level the company finds the energy to realize what they want to do, and most of the times they do it. At least they try.
okay. I want to get back to your latest book and I quattro pilastri per le aziende B2B, because
Okay.
you identify innovation, design, brand, and sustainability as the four legs of a table. Why do these four belong together, and what happens when one of them is missing?
That's a good question. I think I try to establish a strong connection between these four concepts to strengthen, better eradicate them in the reality of companies. And I would regard them as the four legs of a table. To have a table and put something on a table, you need to have four legs. They need to be a certain height, and possibly the same height, the same length. Otherwise, the table is not stable. So it was easier to write the book evoking dimensions like the ones you said that are very familiar. People are very familiar with.
Mm. So I want to get back to, I want to stay on the B2B markets, and which are often perceived as technical and impersonal. But you speak about, and you just spoke about, interaction and alignment. So how do you think that B2B companies can become more human without losing efficiency?
Um, I don't think that there's never been a question of efficiency in B2B companies. They are, they're famous for that. They are sadly famous for that. Now, I think the basic problem of B2B is the same as Cinderella. She's so nice. She's so you know you can depend on her, and you know you can count on her. But basically, she's always staying in the kitchen and nobody sees her. You know, so companies like Cinderella, they badly need to go to the grand ball where things happen, and I think to do that you need some, you know, you need the crystal shoes, and you need some magic, and they need to shift from making to being B2B companies, you know, and capture again the idea that the real innovation and also sustainability lies in components, ingredients, and industrial processes, and not in the end products, or in the end user products, because the end user products are merely the result of a process, and the B2B companies are in charge of that process.
Right. Let's stay on sustainability for a second, because you just mentioned it. And also, it's one of the legs, one of the famous legs that keeps the table stable, if you will. So it's a buzzword. I mean, all we hear about today is sustainability, sustainability. But from your perspective, what distinguishes authentic, sustainable innovation from sort of superficial greenwashing, if you will?
First of all, I want to tell you that I tried to get away without talking about sustainability, but the editor,
He made you?
yeah, no, he told me that it was impossible to not to evoke.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the part of sustainability in the book in the end is very interesting and sort of funny, sort of nice to read, because it popped up from, you know, from nowhere, because I didn't want to talk about that. But basically, I also built an idea. I had to carve out an idea of what sustainability could be in terms of a sustainable concept of sustainability. You know, as you said, everybody, it's like love. You know, you write a song with love, it's it's a disaster, because everybody talks about love and heart and stuff like that. But when you investigate scientifically principles, processes, and outcomes, along with the systemic consequences, then you're doing real sustainable innovation. When you constantly search for workarounds to abide to regulations that are transient, then you're doing greenwashing. So I would recommend companies to do the right thing always, and in the first row, immediately.
Okay. Immediately. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good piece of advice. I want to talk about Italy, which we could talk about forever on so many levels, but let's talk about it primarily in terms of work, in terms of business. So you do work primarily here, and Italy is a country that does have a strong industrial and design heritage. What unique strengths and weaknesses do you see in Italian companies navigating global competition?
Well, first of all, I have to say that I've been always, Italians are very critical about Italy, you know. They think that everything is better abroad, but
Always,
always, you know.
always.
But I guess that we don't understand how lucky we are in terms of environment and lots of things. Lots of things. Of course, you know, being a citizen, it's always a compromise, you know, for our individuality, you know. So any country has its good and bad. I would say that in Italy, to make it short, that I think that difficult to dispute that there's creativity, a huge amount of culture that other countries don't even. And I'm talking a culture. A culture is an attitude. A culture is the way you do things, not only the way you think. Culture is not knowing literature. Culture is the way you live, and flexibility. Minus is I will use an Italian word, provincialismo. Provincialismo meaning my place is the best place in the world, and I don't know anything better than that. You know, like for instance, people from Livorno would go to New York. They come back and say, "Yeah, New York is very interesting, but the food here is fantastic." What, you know, it's unbelievable. That's provincialism.
And Alessandro, of course, you're from Livorno, so that's important to underscore.
I'm from Livorno. I love that. I love my town, and but yes, it's a very provincial town.
I love your town too, and you've been low key trying to convince me to move there, and I'm very much thinking about it. Um, Thank you for that because I think that gives a very nice picture of Italy and its strengths and weaknesses and the global, let's say in a global competition sense. You often speak about helping companies maintain a sense of orientation. And I wonder what advice you would give to young entrepreneurs who feel overwhelmed by kind of what's going on right now. I can't avoid talking about the state of the world and, AI with a philosopher. What kind you teach too? So what kind of advice do you offer to your students or to young people that you encounter who are trying to make their way in this world today, this complicated world?
First of all, I would quote Marshall McLuhan, the
Okay.
father of the philosophy of communication, that says in 1968 said, our age of anxiety basically stems out from the fact that we're doing today's jobs with yesterday's skills and concepts. I like that. So
Mm,
let me put it another way. There's a huge opportunity in transition time, but you have to switch your nervous system, So you have to keep balance, but in the flow, and you have to regulate your nervous system in the chaos and stimulus of stressors. You have to do that. So
mm.
be happy, learn how to be happy, make other people as happy as possible, and and realize that you are having a lot of fun.
That's a pretty beautiful approach to life and to work, you know? Those are some pretty fundamental things that we tend to lose sight of.
Yeah,
Yeah. We need a
yeah.
philosopher to remind us of what's really important, you know?
Sì, è vero.
Right?
Yes, you're right. Apocalypse, also the apocalypse
Mm.
in literature is is sort of mindset of the language.
Mm.
It's a rhetoric. There are times where things are becoming a little bit narrow because they are exhausted. A lifestyle, geopolitics, politics, our way of thinking is exhausted. Then we think that is apocalypse. That's the end of everything. It's only a transition, and when there is a transition, you have to see the future in the present. You're not able to look at close enough.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to we're coming to the end of my questions, but I want to go back to your other book, Senza aspettare Godot,
Sì.
Without Waiting for Godot, which evokes obviously Beckett's metaphor of waiting for something that never arrives. In business and in life, what do you think we are still waiting for?
I don't know. No, perché the conversation between the two, Vladimir and Estragon, is basically constructing the idea, is building the idea that there is something we are waiting for. So as we are waiting for something, there's nothing we should do before the things we're waiting appear. So, but they don't know what they're waiting for. When they talk about Godot, each of them has a different idea of what Godot is. So
Is
when
yeah.
somebody shows up, they say, but this is not Godot. They think, okay, we're waiting for something, but basically this is not. There's a very nice joke in Japan. A place is flooded, and after a week, the rescue boat arrives near a house where, on top of the roof, there's this old man, and
Mm.
the guy from the boat says, "Come, come, give me your hand." And the old man says, "No, I'm waiting for rescue." So basically, waiting for Godot is this kind of. So maybe we're terribly lazy. Maybe we have an internal system that is devised to seek for excuses. And Godot is one. And in the book, I suggest that what we're waiting for has already landed a long time ago.
Yeah. That seems like the exact answer to the question. I didn't put this in the questions, and I hope you don't mind my asking. It's sort of impromptu, but since I sent you the questions, I've been seeing more and more that there is an interest in philosophers and in people who study philosophy, especially in our, very much AI ruled world right now. And I would really like your thoughts on that. Also, because you teach and you work with young people and your background is in philosophy, I just would love to hear what you think about that, the value of studying philosophy for whatever field one goes into.
Well, I'm prejudiced.
I know you are. That's why I asked.
No, I'm prejudiced because what I'm seeing in philosophy is a huge amount of beauty. I see philosophy as a beautiful practice, and I'm pretty much concerned about beauty. I love beauty. And I think that the way philosophy regards the world with this huge deal of respect, but curiosity is beautiful, is really beautiful. On the other hand, the other thing that I didn't want to talk about was AI, and again, the editor said you cannot write the book without talking about AI.
The
So
editor was right, Alessandro.
let
I'm
me put
sorry, he
it
was
this way.
right.
Okay, in the book there is a nice joke about AI, but basically what I want to say is this: philosophy is about questions, not answers. And in AI, the solutions are already there in the interconnection of databases. So, meaning that the answer will be a certain connection between data that are already there. What makes the difference is the quality of the question. So, if we have to do with the genius of the lamp, no, okay. You know the funny story about the Mille e una notte, okay? I'm pretty sure that having the possibility of asking for three things, we would blow it. Because
Sure.
we don't know how to question, okay? While we always venture to answer, although there's no question. So philosophy is that thing.
Yeah. I mean, a perfect answer, just more questions. And that is what a philosopher does. Because you make us think. You make us think and
Yeah.
things. And that today is fundamental. It's a really fundamental practice. So I want to ask you the last question. You are a very busy man. You always are doing something. And I would love to know what's next for you, Alessandro.
Allora, very next will be tonight. I will be playing saxophone with a bunch of friends in Milan.
Yay, that's right. You're
Okay,
also a musician, which I forgot to mention, but it was
so
the
the
first thing
great
you told
tradition, the
me.
great
Yeah.
tradition, the great American tradition, and everything else. Anyhow, in the future, I think seeking connection with young people and companies that want to experiment what it means to thrive also in chaos. Having, you can carve out a method, and maybe it will not be so comfortable, but it can be very safe. And on the other hand, too much comfort can end up in result in a big deal of unsafety. So, and I will end up by quoting two guys that are very peculiar. One is from Nietzsche: you still have to have chaos inside to be able to generate a dancing star. That's Zarathustra. And the other one comes from Cole Porter, the author, great Cole Porter, the author of Night and Day, and says, experiment, make it a merriment.
What great quotes. Thank you. You've quoted two of my favorites. Nietzsche is probably one of my absolute favorites, and Cole Porter,
Oh,
well, Can't say
Good.
anything bad about Cole Porter. Can't say anything bad about Cole Porter, Alessandro. Thank you so much for this. I always love talking to you and I learning from you. And I think our listeners are very lucky to be able to hear this conversation today. And I will put all of your information in the show notes so people know where they can find you. And I wish you the best of luck tonight, of course, with your gig, which I hope to see you live someday. That would be fun. Maybe we could do night and day. It's in my repertoire. Um, and then, yeah, just looking forward to seeing all the great things that you're going to do still.
Fantastic. We can set up a gig anytime, anywhere. Also in the streets. I have a trolley, an amplifier trolley. We can do
All
it.
right. It wouldn't be the first time that I've sung on the streets of Italy. That's for sure. We'll go to Livorno.
That's
We'll do
fantastic.
it in Livorno, one of the most human cities in the world,
È vero, hai ragione.
right? Yeah, they have not lost touch with
No,
their
they haven't.
humanity. Not at all.
They are crazy. They're crazy bunch of people, but it's a nice place to be.
It really is.
Fosca, thank you so much. Fosca, thank you so
Grazie.
much.
Grazie a te.
Ciao, a presto.
Ciao, grazie.